All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. I guess this is our 10th or ninth episode we've done here, Joe. It's been over 2 months now. I've definitely enjoyed it. We're getting our groove. I like the idea of we're talking new books. This week there weren't as many new books. I got a little busy, so I don't even have the super list at the end of the show. We'll talk through some that are going to be on the list, and I can talk through them. But I don't have the list to show you guys. But we're also going to talk about what's coming out with my article that's coming out on Sunday, a little bit of a sneak peek. So that if you are watching me, you actually get to see, and maybe, hey, that is good spec. I'm going to go grab that because there's one in my store for cover price or whatever. So we'll talk about some of that. But Joe, did you go get any new books this week?
I didn't.
The only hot book that I saw that sort of had buzz with it was Goblin Queen or Queen Goblin, whichever.
Whatever we want to call her.
We talked about her last week. Some people are saying I don't know why it's a hot book. I mean, I can see the design variant maybe being a hot book, but I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This is Red Goblin all over again. She might take off, but I'm sorry. 90,000 copies of Spider-Man come out every week.
Right.
That's the thing for me. It's like, and then the incentive, the one for 25, we looked at it last week, was not like the design variant is the only one I could see.
Yeah.
But even then, I'm not paying. But people are so scared of missing out because they missed out on Black Panther 3, and we'll talk a little bit about him when we hit some of our theme of sidekicks and everything. But that's the only book I've really heard of really taking off. It was actually a light week for me. I went and I picked up the Halicon.
Oh, you got Chewie with a lightsaber?
I got Chewie with a lightsaber and the 1 for 10 theme park ride variant that we went with that. That was sort of fun. I'm a little bummed the copy I grabbed I didn't realize it when I grabbed it. It had a line across the bottom like a printer error. So I was like, damn, I got the wrong one. But it's actually I read through it potential, but I haven't been reading High Republic enough, but it's actually stories about the experiences people had on the ship. So it's sort of the Halicon. I think I guess the name of the ship, Halicon Legend or something like that. So it flashes forwards and they tell different stories about different characters. So I don't know enough about the show, the comics to know who's the first and who's the second and that type of thing.
Right. Yeah.
But pick it up.
I haven't been following it at all.
Yeah.
I got the first High Republic and read it, and it was fine.
Yeah.
But, just for the long game there.
Yeah. I have a couple of copies. Of course, there's so many copies out there. That one, it's like, ugh.
And then there's like new appearances like every single issue. It seems like So it was once I was like looking at that, and it was just like, oh, there's a million new first appearances. I was like, yeah, well, I'll wait. I'll wait and read some of it. Like read it all in a chunk maybe this summer or something. Cool.
I'm trying to think. I actually have it right here beside me. Yeah, it was a fun read. Oh yeah, and that did pick up New Masters. We talked about that.
Oh yeah.
I wanted support, so I did grab that book. It was it's actually pretty good. It's not quite what I was expecting, but it's more of a African version of like a Blade Runner. No, I take that back. Not Blade Runner. It felt like I was reading Star Wars Force Awakens. It almost felt like it was opening with Rey on whatever planet she was on, mining for stuff, because that's what it opens with, is this girl mining for stuff, and she has a metal arm, so it's set in the future. But it's a good read, and I like the art in it. I will pick up the second issue just to give it another more continued shot. But it was worth picking up.
That's pretty good. Anytime an indie book you grab and you're like,
yeah,
I'm gonna read the second one. That's hard to find. I feel like there's so much out there.
Yeah. So we're gonna jump in. We're gonna look at what books we got coming out this week. Like we said, there weren't a ton. And then we're going to talk about some sidekicks, and we'll come back to this slide at the end to sort of explain who these people are that are on the slide. But I threw it up there with already the hottest book next week. This book is skyrocketing. We'll talk a little bit more about it. And I don't know, part of some of the silliness behind why it's skyrocketing. But let's jump in. Look at some of the books. Here's the list of guys that I throw out there. If you follow my Instagram, these are ones we're sort of looking at. First book we're talking about is Timeless second print. If you read my stuff, guys, I despise second prints with ratio variants. Doesn't matter if it's a good cover. Now I know we're speculators. Some of us are. Some of us just like to read comics. This is a book that, and Joe and I were talking off camera. Neither one of us have read it. I don't know what happens in this book. I don't even know if this image of the Punisher with his new emblem is the first. If this image is in the book, Joe, what do you know about this book?
Nothing. I know that you grabbed the ratio when it came out because we had talked about it, and you were pretty pumped that you grabbed it.
Yeah.
And then it skyrocketed. So I was like, good call. But that's it. That's all I know.
Well, and actually, this one didn't. The one I grabbed wasn't the ratio. It was the Miss Minutes cover that was just regular, but it was the one that everyone wanted. Right. I was able to grab it. Now, sadly,
I didn't see any of them when I went the next day.
Yeah, it had a printer error or whatever, so I'm a little bummed. I'm like, okay, it has a rub, so it's not going to be ever get 9.8. Not that I send my books in that often,
right.
But I do like the 1 for 50, strictly because Miracle Man. I like the emblem. I like sort of the faded look on it. I can picture if you're bold enough to shell out the money for a 1 for 50 second print and then taking it, get it sketched.
Yeah.
Getting it signed by Neil Gaiman, getting it sketched on. I mean, Alan Moore doing some work on it, or that'd be pretty cool. But sure. I can't remember who did when Gaiman took over. Who was it? Mac that did some of those back in the 80s, or it was it might have been McKean. There were some gorgeous. Miracle Man came out and there's a long convoluted story. You can actually read one of my articles that I go through it all. But in the 80s, he had a short mini series about 24 issues. But Neil Gaiman wrote from 16, 17 through the end of it. And they're super hard to find. They don't look anything like the first books. And Alan Moore wrote some of them. And they're awesome. But they're really hard to find, especially hard to find in good condition. Life Zero. Joe, tell me about this book because it has a little bit of buzz. There are actually 3 or 4 stores that have store exclusives for this too.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. Well, I just like the artist because it's the guy that did that Daredevil with Chip that we had just talked about like a month ago. And he's kind of been on my radar just a little bit for the last few years. And then I was reading about this book and I couldn't find anything. So I just started Googling around, and it came out in 2015 in Italy. I guess both these guys are Italian. And I think it's only 3 issues, and it's basically zombie action. So the guy who did Daredevil drawing zombie action, apparently some of the pages just are totally soaked in blood, it feels like. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, it is interesting to me that, this is kind of one of those things that you always hear really cool. And you hear a lot of artists talk about going to France or going to Europe, and they'll go to a comic shop and there's just books and books and books that we've never heard of or seen. And they just haven't been translated into English and they haven't been found a publisher. I don't remember who I was listening to Jeff Darrow. An interview with Jeff Darrow, and he was talking about how, he lives in France, and there's just so many great European comics that we don't get. So you said that Ablaze was maybe doing a little bit more of that.
Well, they just recently did Animal Castle. Animal Castle is French. It's from France. So I think Ablaze is sort of tapping in that. If you also, that makes a little bit more sense because I've been noticing some of the artists that Marvel has. That are consistent Marvel or DC artists, all of a sudden they have some books come out on Ablaze, and I'm like, Ablaze is not that big of a label, but if it's all of a sudden Gillian March, or however you say his name, he has a book called Laura and something, and that makes a lot more sense. It might have been their book they already did. Del Era has a book, I Walk with Monsters, or something like that, and it's on Ablaze, and he's known for Something's Killing the Children, but maybe this is his work that was in Italy. That makes a lot more sense when I think through it. Yeah. I don't know if this will be as hot as Animal Planet or Animal Castle. Yeah. That book amazed me. But
I don't think it will be.
No. And guys, there are one for Ablaze is ridiculous because they do Virgin covers for a 110 and a one for. So there's going to be more than just these 3 covers. There's store exclusives like I talked about. But I actually really do like this cover A, shadow on the side. It's pretty badass.
Me too.
I'm trying to do something a little bit different, mainly because this is the book that I have to remember why I put it on here when I create the slide. So I actually took the synopsis and I dropped it in the center. Batman Urban Legends. It's this book intrigues me. Like the entire series. Have you read any of these?
I have not.
For one thing, they're $8 books, so that makes it a little bit harder to like jump on them because you're like, okay, I'm paying $8 for little. They have like little stories inside of them, like, but it's like the old school, the Super Giant books that DC did.
Yeah,
that's what it has that feel of. But you get the random side stories for Batman and the urban legends or whatever. So like this, you have a Bat Hound has a story in here that's been continuing. Then Batman's Zatanna. What struck me was White Witch and Ghostmaker, who are new characters that have been introduced, meet students of their sensei they never knew. So you might get to introduce some more new characters if you like Ghostmaker, if you like White Witch as characters. Now you get to meet some more people that trained under this person. Because I think you told me that Ghostmaker is the one that's getting pulled into not I Am Batman. Which one? The Batman Knight, Dark Knight, that Zdarsky's doing.
Yeah, I think so.
So he's getting pulled into the early life. So you can tell Ghostmaker might become a more and more important character, though Batman has so many important characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the idea of the story. And then what I really like is this cover here in the center. This is the cover C. It's an $8 cover, just like the rest of them. It's by that artist that last week I was like, I've never heard of this guy before. And then here he is on the second variant that I've seen. It's freaking awesome. I mean, I don't even know what's going on. I don't know the story well enough to know what's going on. No. But it's a really great cover. I love the red. It's Christian Ward does a lot of this where he brings out that really bright. It's not neon, but it feels neon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it burns your eyes. It's great.
And then on the right we have Momoko, everyone's favorite person to hate. But this doesn't feel like Momoko.
Yeah, no, it's
I love it. Like I will probably try to pick this up because it's not a lot of her variants she does all look the exact same. Right. It's this little moon spiral thing that she does, and this one's great. I mean, it's Wolverine wearing a plaid shirt with his claws out, and just the giant chops that are just ridiculous. Joe, I know you've actually shaved your beard a few times that way.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's been 20 years. Let's not talk about it. Yeah, this is like going back to like early Wolverine stuff, like right before he's picked up by the Weapon X's would be my, that's where that plaid shirt comes from or whatever.
And then we have this Darth Vader. Everyone has jumped on this from the second this cover was released. People went crazy and started ordering this. What is it? The Chris Sprouse's little homage covers that he does, the 50th anniversary. But it is the first time that Mandalorian and Grogu have been on a Marvel book, and then on the cover especially. Like they've been drawn on the covers of Star Wars Insiders. They're not in the book at all, from what we know.
Right.
It is strict. So this is the first print. There's already a second print. That's a silver version, I think.
Yeah.
And the first print is already sold out at pretty much every store. It's not, but guys, it is not the first cover or first appearance of Grogu. Grogu has a weird first appearance. Joe, do you know what his weird first appearance is?
No.
Die 14. Die is a Robert Kirkman or Skybound book.
Right.
It's that Die was made famous because their first issue had like 20 variants, and all it was a different thought bubble or talking bubble in the corner of these bloody guys fighting, and they're all saying stupid things to each other on each cover. But issue 14, the last issue of the series, shows Obama with these big old boxing gloves on, and he's fighting it on an alien planet. And it's President Obama. And in the crowd, you get this massive crowd shot, and you see things like E.T. in the crowd, and you see Captain Carrot, and all these different characters, and one of them is Grogu being held by a different type of alien. But it's obviously a baby Yoda, Grogu, in the crowd. There's no denying who, because there are all these different pop culture characters. So that's the first. If you're just talking about an image, then that would be the first image of Grogu in a comic. No one wants to believe that, that book is really hard to find. Topher on CBSI highlighted it. I actually have a copy just randomly because I thought it was funny to have Obama on the cover boxing. But it's one of those. This book obviously will be the one everyone wants, but if you're a true have a first appearance argument, Die 14, guys. It's a fun book to track down. Look at it. It's a ridiculous book to have to own.
Yeah, that's wild.
Some more covers we like. It was a hard week to find covers I really just got excited about when I was digging through it. We've been talking about this detective run, and the cover A's have been. The cover B is great too. Bergemo did but this cover A, something about it struck me the second I saw it.
Yeah. These like painted covers they're crushing it.
And it's Ivan Rodriguez, who had maybe he's been doing them all, and I just haven't. But it's not a name that's like readily. Oh, that's right in my head. Yeah, I know. I follow him.
Yeah, me neither.
This one I like because at first glance I thought that was like a puddle of blood. That's a batarang.
Yeah.
Like you had to do a double look and like, oh, that's even better.
Yeah, I really like how the negative space of the black on the right goes all the way up to hit the bat.
Oh yeah,
and the shadow like that. It's like so then that becomes like the shadow of the batarang. Like there's like it's pretty well thought out and pretty fun. I was glad that you hit it because we could hit these detectives every week since they're coming out. Like
they've been gorgeous. I know Morello, who does cover fire, he has to struggle. He'll highlight them every once in a while too, just because they're being great. And guys, I haven't read it, so I can't tell you what the heck's going on. Some of the stories in them have intrigued me because you'll see like, oh, but okay, this is a Miles Morales cover on Avengers 53. Miles is not in the book. It is Black History Month. I am happy to celebrate African American or Black guys or women or whatever, but it drives me nuts that we have to put it in a month. Why can't we do it any time? But Miles Morales cover by Swaby, however you say his name. There's actually a Iron or Luke Cage cover as well. They did it on a different book, but I love this cover. Evidently, Avengers. I'm hearing through the grapevine that Avengers 53 might have Black Panther wearing a different color armor. So it's red. Someone shot out. I've seen that posted. It supposedly that costume changes rarely have that much value.
Right.
A few of Spider-Man's have strictly because they appear in the movie. If they didn't appear in a movie, no one cares. I mean, the number of times Spider-Man has changed costumes, there's quite a few, and the very few of them have outside of the new fit, unless it becomes like. Unless there's a legend that goes behind it, but lots of times it doesn't really matter that much. And then our boy Frank, who likes the show and was on it a couple of times, he highlighted this book. This New Mutants, it shoots and ladders. It took me a second to realize what was going on, but it shoots and ladders, or whatever you want, ladders and slides, whatever version of the game you played. Or snakes and what was the one? Snakes and something like that. But it's great. Rod Reese, however you say it, he does some. Him and Del Mundo, they just do something different.
Yeah.
I don't know what I haven't been following. I know some of the early issues actually had some new characters. The X-Men books, any mutant book is so very hard to decide because there's so many new characters. They're always introducing someone new. It's hard to know who and it's up to the writer to decide. I take that back. This is not Rod Reese. How do you say it? It's Martin Simmons.
Yeah.
Should have corrected me. I read it. I was like, oh wait, no. That's what even more amazing. This is the guy who's doing Department of Truth.
Yeah, man, he's pretty good. I like his stuff.
Yeah,
he's very he's bold. He's always trying new stuff, and he's very playful.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't get stuck in a this is my style kind of like all the interior stuff is looking very similar, and like that's how it should because you want that continuous style, but. On every cover, and he's been covering all over the place.
Oh yeah.
Once Department of Truth went big, I feel like that was he was everywhere, and I've picked up a bunch of his covers because they're pretty cool.
And then he started playing around with Department of Truth, to where I'm like, oh, he's done some cover B's and C's for someone. They're like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Throwing these in here, The Gwen-verse is coming, guys. If you, it's not coming out till March, but they're starting to do this month. You'll probably get 2 to 3 of these. So the one on the left is it's a Venom 5. So, but it's Russell Dauterman doing Dazzler as Gwen. As Gwen. So it's going to be all X characters. So X-Men characters, all as Gwen, is what the theme is for. I don't know how they came to this theme. Then you of course get Kitty Pryde as Gwen, for this Romero cover in the center, and then you get Betsy Cola's doing Psylocke as Gwen. Is there spec value in any of these? Not at first. Long-term hold. I'm starting to notice some of the Mary Jane books that were done 3 years ago. Some of them are starting to pick up, and pick up as in now they're $10 books. So it's one of those, if you want to pay $5 for a book that's worth $10 in 3 years, that might eventually hit 20. That's up to you. It's a tough decision for me. If I'm going to play that game, I will go for a book that's going to be low printed, that no one's reading, and is a good cover. And when I'm looking at these three, they're actually all three very good. Psylocke is always a popular fan favorite character, so I can see that one. And then Dazzler, but this Dauterman's one of those hit or miss guys for me. But I can see going after this Betsy Cola cover if you're going to go. It's Devil's Reign number 4. But this is straight up long term hold. I don't see much potential, especially because if you're going first Gwen character X-Men, well, X-Men 92 from Secret Wars had a Gwen themed cover. So some of these X-Men characters you're seeing have already been done. One of the last books we're going to talk this indie books in a little bit too, but this Black Label Suicide Squad Blaze. Joe, you sent me this cover. I like this cover too. We were both on the same wavelength. Then you read the description, and it's like the Suicide Squad, Harley Quinn, Peacemaker, Captain Boomerang, and King Shark have been assigned to corral, nursemaid, and if necessary, execute 5 deadly new recruits. Not only are they 5 deadly new recruits, they've been given this drug that will burn through them in a certain amount of time. But not only does it burn through them and eventually kill them, if one of them dies, then the other person gets even more power with this blaze, whatever stuff. So it's like, okay, who's going to kill who makes him stronger? It's an interesting premise. Some of the there's actually really good stuff in the Black Label. And this one, Simon Spurrier and Belair's doing the colors, who we like. Aaron Campbell's the illustrator. Some good names on here who aren't normally on these Black Label books. So
right, yeah, it seems like a weird one, right?
Yeah.
So I'm definitely gonna pick it up and look at it.
Yeah, it's the hard thing for me, of course, is that a lot of these Black Label books are oddly shaped.
Yeah,
and then they're usually $1 more,
$6 to $8. Yeah.
It's like, okay, is it worth? But on the bright side, you're talking 4 books usually. These aren't long. I think a few of the Black Labels have been 10-issue maxi series, but those are usually just comic book size.
Yeah, I think this is a one shot.
Okay, it was then that might even be more tempting.
Yeah.
So
I don't see it said there, but I think I read that.
Okay. Indie spotlights. Last thing we're going to talk about is there wasn't a ton of indie books that excited me. Now some of the books it's hard when we start getting into indie books because it's like, well, I'm reading it, but is it worth talking about?
Yeah.
And just like when I make my list, I'm reading it, but there's not an incentive. There's not anything that collectible in it. I just want to finish the story. And these are actually 3 books that I've actually read all of these books, at least the first issues of them. Radiant Black's one I've been high on. I've tried to pick up anytime I see an issue 1 for cover, I buy it, which is near impossible now. But it's actually getting a spin-off series. I think it's called it's getting a spin-off series. I know it's getting a spin-off series. They've introduced Radiant Black definitely has a feel of Power Rangers. When you look at it, you see Power Rangers. This particular issue is a 1. I like the cover. There's a 1 for 20, 1 for 10, or 1 for 25 for this. But I like the cover 8 best. This is a origin story for this particular Radiant character. There's like a Radiant Pink, a Radiant, like they're all almost like Power Rangers. Joe, you told me to read Radio Apocalypse.
Yeah, it's Ram V. I picked up the first one And I was at first the coloring kind of threw me because there's a lot of pink and green. It's kind of saturating and like eating everything, which normally annoys me, especially with like real paint. But digitally, by the time I was on like the 5th page, my brain settled down, and I just completely forgot that the color was doing anything other than nauseating me when it needed to nauseate me. I think the color was the thing that like really sold me on the book. But the drawing style was really interesting. Ram V can write, man. I think everything he's got, I've enjoyed that I've read. Like it's kind of like Lemire when Lemire first hit, and then Lemire had been writing for years and years and years, but didn't have any books out. And then suddenly it was, oh, here's a Lemire thing. Here's a Lemire thing. I feel like we've kind of hit the Ram V, and people are like, what else do you have? And he's like, I've got this and this and this and this. And so we're going to get a lot of good stuff.
But he's like, this is Vault. He did Many Deaths of Layla Starr for Boom. He's been writing for DC. He's been writing for Marvel. He's the one who him and Al Ewing have been doing Venom together, which you people that are Cates fans have hated the Venom run.
Oh yeah,
and it's very interesting. People hate. I'm like, dude, I love Many Deaths of Layla Starr. Like
it was one of my favorite books last year.
Yeah, it's just very interesting, but it's not Cates. So it's like that switch over, though you still have some of the same things. People haven't been as high on the Venom strictly because they're Cates fans. But guess what? I get burned out on Cates a little bit. So like having a fresh blood is a good thing.
Yeah.
Have you gone to get this Apache delivery service yet?
I haven't left the house, man. I've been drawn. That's all I'm doing.
The guys, this is issue 2. If you haven't checked this book out,
I did read it. I read it online, and it just made me like, I've got like 3 copies in my cart and on eBay, which is a terrible way to go. But it was really good.
It's not it. I don't want to ruin it if you haven't read it, but it's still like you read the book and you're like, okay, it's one thing, and it's like, okay, it's set in Vietnam. It's set, and then you're like, wait a minute, it's not that thing. You get to the very end of issue 1, and you're like, okay, because Matt Kent, who's the writer of it. Some people love his style, some people don't. He, of course, did Berserker. He's done Department H. And you start going through the list of things Matt Kent's done. You're like, wait, I do like a lot of his stuff.
Right.
But I love the art. Tyler Jenkins' art is I think they partnered together to do Grass Kings.
Yeah, I really liked Grass Kings too. Tyler Jenkins got on my radar because of that book, and I've picked up anytime I see anything that he does.
Did he roll City with Lemire?
I don't know,
because it has that same feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I'm gonna check out issue 2. There is a second print for issue 1. The second print was already made. It came out like the next week. So people they knew it was gonna be a good book, guys. I picked up. It's worth reading. It's worth picking up. For sure.
Yeah, it's got a good like that first issue's got a really good like grounded. This would like I feel like there's some spec like even if it's a Netflix movie like like there's something there. It feels very grounded. I'm hoping that it gets really nuts, but and I think that's where they're going with it. But yeah, it's good read.
So guys, I don't have the list like I normally would have. I just didn't get a chance to finish it. But the interesting thing about the list is usually I give you a list and we talk about some incentive books. There's 2 more books, or we talked about Avengers 53 being a sort of a maybe worthwhile cover price spec play. I wouldn't pay over cover price for it, just because of if you're a big believer in costume changes. But Black Panther 3 has a Joe Jusko variant that somehow didn't get released at the same time. Sometimes that happens, that there's a printing error, they don't get something. So your shops might miraculously have Black Panther 3 that came out 2 weeks ago, might actually have 1 additional cover before Black Panther 3 comes out, or the second print comes out. So you might be worth checking out. I don't know how many shops are getting it. JoJo, it has nothing on the cover. The other two covers are so much better. But when the cover A is getting 25, 30, 35, 40, it keeps climbing, picking up cover C or B might be worthwhile. Though it's Joe Jusko, it's not his best work in my opinion. I didn't have time to throw the image up here, but it might be worth checking out, seeing it. Midtown's already sold out of it. Most of your online shops have already been sold. It was people clued into it probably a week ago. To me, it's not going to be considered a true first print strictly because it came out 2 weeks later. It's going to be a known fact amongst collectors that it came out 2 weeks later, but it's not necessarily a second print either. So it's a weird dynamic. There are a few times that has happened. I think it happened with Berserker issue 1. The foil came out a week later. Spider-Man Black, I think, had that happen as well. One of the covers. It was not a second print, but it basically ended up being called a second print. It was actually the more popular of the covers. And then the other thing is the good old Edge of Spider-Verse 2 facsimile comes out next week.
Oh, cool.
Did you fall for the? Have you ever bought any of the facsimiles, Joe?
Only on purpose.
That's the hardest thing. In Gwen is going to be the same thing that Miles was. They're the same. I'm pretty sure it's the same price. So one of the ways you could use, like when it was a facsimile of like Tomb of Dracula, you're dumb if you pay $400 for something that's $3.99 when it was a 20-cent book or whatever it was.
Right.
But Miles was $3.99 and was $3.99.
Yeah.
The only difference on the covers was the red Marvel versus the white Marvel. That's the only difference. Small little detail. You have to really scan the picture if you have sellers who aren't honest. I'm assuming Edge of Spider-Man will be the same thing. Now the other lots and lots and lots of stores are doing exclusives, reprints of this. So there might be some cool covers. I'm not a big fan of exclusive reprints because you're like, well, it's not, none of it's new, so you just strictly buy it because you like the cover.
Yeah.
But so that's two books that I didn't really have a chance to highlight that might be worth looking into. There are some nice covers coming out, but one I sort of like is the I Am Batman #6, the Kerry Randolph incentive.
Yeah.
It was really cool. It had Batman perched on a ledge while the kids were spray painting I Am Batman on the wall.
Yeah.
I like Kari's pretty cool dude. So yeah, guys, there wasn't a ton as much this week. There are a lot of indie books coming out, but it's like the Blaze, like we talked, they'll have 15, 20 copies of a book.
Yeah.
So this is, guys, we mentioned this, and I was telling Joe about this. Switching gears, we're dropping new books, sort of. This is still new information for some of you guys. This is, if you read comics and you read not just issue 1, but if you read through an entire series, and this is where buying a trade can be beneficial, or I have the Marvel Unlimited subscription on my iPad, so I can just read through all the way through issues or whatever. What got me thinking about this is when I did Daredevil, and I read through it, and I highlighted in my article that Elektra had taken a protege, and her name was Alice, and it was in issue 26. I was lucky enough, I guess, the same day I got the new Masters, I showed up at shop, and I was able to pick up one. First appearance is in here. Elektra saves her, ends up killing her mom during the King of Black thing, so she sort of basically takes her under her wing, and is going to pay for her education, does to go through some training with her, and who knows where that goes, but potential protege, apprentice, whatever you want to call it, sidekick. At one point, they sort of were. So if you look at this image here on the far right, that's Alice. Who knows where that's going to go? In the center, we'll get to in a second. And then you have right here, you have Dylan Brock. That's the one everyone knows. That's Venom's son. He's been well known. People have speculated on him for forever. Joe, did you read through the Venom run? How far into Venom did you read when Kate's had it?
Not very far.
Yeah.
It looked good, but it was one of those things that I was, everything was pretty hot.
Yeah.
So I would get to the shop and there would be no copies. So I would be like, well, I'm 2 days late. Of course there are no copies. But then I was like, well, it's another one of those things that I'll read together in a big chunk. I mean, it's on the list. I definitely want to read it.
Yeah, and Cates is notorious, and I got turned off. I mean, I collected through the first 25 issues. I read the first, I guess, 2 arcs, and Dylan was introduced in issue 7, and then he's full appearances issue 9, and then Cates would hint at that at some point something's going to happen to them, and then finally issue 35, Dylan becomes the Venom of Earth, and Eddie Brock goes off to outer space. But it's not the same Dylan that we meet in issue 6 or 7. I mean, it's a different world's Venom, or maybe he aged by 10 years, but I mean, he's like a middle schooler when you first meet him, and it's not like they did 10 years worth of time. And so it gets really confusing. I have not read from 26 on, there was so much going on, and it was so speculated on, and it went to every issue went to a 4th, 5th, 6th printing.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And they had 1 for 500 variants. I'm like, dude, Kate sold that thing as being the most amazing. And I mean, he's great at what he does. He knows how to sell books.
For sure.
But Dylan Brock, he's Sidekick / he's Venom now. But he did the part of the reason I'm bringing all this up is this Batman idea of, I feel like Marvel's going towards that. They're going towards this instead of what they did 2011 through 2014. They did we're just going to introduce a whole heck of a lot of characters to you that are brand new. They're all going to be copies, but not quite copies. Like, I mean, it made everyone mad. You remember how mad people got when there was a new Spider-Man who wasn't Peter Parker, but he was a black Latino kid from the Bronx? Like, how upset people were, and they bashed it, and it was.
Yeah.
And now people love Miles, but they hated him for what, probably 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, it was a hard sell.
And then they copied Captain Marvel. They did Miss Marvel or whatever with Kamala Khan. Now, at first she tried to copy the costume or whatever, and then she became her own person too. But they force fed you once again a new character, and they gave her a new series with barely getting you a chance to get to know her.
Yeah,
it paid off in the long run, but
yeah, there's a show coming out, right?
Mm-hmm. There's a show coming. I'm excited. I liked her stuff, but it was interesting. They did that with her. Then Edge of Spider-Verse is sort of different to me because they start switching worlds. So Gwen's a different animal in my head. As far as Riri, they recently did Riri Williams, who is Ironheart, who replacing Iron Man, and actually did in the comics replace Iron Man because Iron Man became the AI in her head or in the Iron Man costume. So that's how they sort of forced you into, instead of training the new, because like Miles, Peter Parker died, Miles took over.
Right.
Like, it was not Kamala Khan became Miss Marvel, but she wasn't in training from Captain Marvel. They're just brand new characters that have ties to them because of their names that they chose. Totally Awesome Hulk. Amadeus Cho, he becomes the Hulk, but he doesn't get trained by the Hulk. Now, he did hang out with him for a long time, but he never got trained in how to manage the Hulk powers or whatever like that.
Yeah.
So what Marvel's doing now is they're taking C-list characters or characters that can never carry a comic book for very long and slowly introducing sidekicks to them. So up until Kate's, well, actually, Venom's become, but Kate's made Venom the thing that Venom is now. Maybe Remender, but that was a different Venom.
Yeah.
But
that's fair.
Elektra getting a sidekick. Black Widow got a sidekick or a apprentice, Lucy, which was Black Widow issue 6. And then that image I showed earlier. Let me switch this one here. The girl in the center, her name is, and this is where spec is weird. Spider-Woman. This is issue 1. You get introduced to her name Marchand, or is her last name. She and her job. She is the daughter of who you find out is Jessica Drew's brother. It's really convoluted. You have to read the story to full. It's a lot to take on. I tried to explain to you earlier, Joe, and it was like,
it was a lot.
It's a. I don't know if it definitely. I read issue 1. And I was like, huh. There's this girl in a wheelchair, and her daddy's super rich, and they seem to be okay with Jessica Drew beating the crap out of everyone on the yacht. And then you find out that he's her brother, and so that makes Rebecca's her niece. And where does it go from there? And screwed up story, but eventually you get to issue 15, 16, and they give her a costume, and you find out how smart she is, and she has like super leg things that help her out, and it's like, huh, there might actually do something with her. Now, I haven't read issues 18. I think it had 2 more issues, and I think they left her and to go do Devil's Reign. So Rebecca's not a part of that, but I could see her dad became evil by the end of it, who was already sort of evil. It's a lot. There's a lot. There's actually, he becomes a potential new Sinister Six bad guy for a Spider-Woman. But it's sort of a fun read. I'm not a big fan of the covers because they're very, very, very digital.
Yeah.
But there are some good covers. Like Kari Andrews does a great cover. I actually think I have it. It's just a gorgeous, almost negative space variant that he does. But yeah. So what do you think about the method of either here's a brand new character taking over, or here's someone being trained to become something?
I mean, I think you're right when you made like a Batman connection. I think if you like, I don't really read detective because the Bat Family book. I mean, traditionally,
yeah.
But it hadn't always been that way. But that's what it's been forever. I mean, the last 4 or 5 years probably.
Yeah.
And that's smart. They keep bringing back, like spoilers back, like all of these, like the Huntress is like, and they've got them, so they're bringing them up, and then they're like, oh well, something cool happened in this story, so then they can put 2 of them together that shouldn't be together, and then they've got a little mini series. And so they're like the Bat Family is like growing. Like Batgirls just came out. Like they can do all that kind of stuff. So probably I would guess that they're seeing the kind of success of that. And DC's handling that pretty well. Like usually I'm annoyed with them, but they're handling that pretty well right now. So it's a good call. Like I really liked the Blind Spot, the Daredevil's sidekick there for a minute, a couple runs ago. Great design. I mean, there's Ron Garney. He's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, great design, great character idea. Of course, he's dead, but they killed him off. But, like, I think that's a really cool thing because, you know, a couple months from now, a year from now, some writer's going to come in, Cates or whoever, and be like, you know, that Gabby from All New Wolverine.
Oh yeah.
Like, what if she shows up in Wastelanders or whatever, you know? Like, and so they just like, not that they have a problem with a roster of stuff, but I feel like, and you can maybe talk about this more than I can, but like, there for a minute, like Disney Star Wars was Disney Star Wars. They didn't want to be beholden to George Lucas Star Wars, right? So they were creating all of this new stuff. And then that, of course, like was bad for the fandom or whatever. But like you've got a million characters that Kirby and Stan Lee like created. But I feel like they're trying, and this is a good thing, they're trying to create new characters. That's never a bad thing in the long run. Yeah. Like it could be terrible when you read the comic and you're like, oh, they're forcing this.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like every like title now has a potential to move towards its own little like, oh, the Doctor Strange universe. Like that's kind of happening. Yeah. Right. Like X-Men has 10,000 books out every month now because Hickman destroyed the world, and then like now everybody's trying to fix it or whatever. Like so, I don't know. They've got more fodder than DC for that kind of thing. So,
well, and the building the universe is a great way to do it, but also, I think I like it to a degree, bringing in and sort of introducing these characters, and then so I had forgotten about Gabby. Gabby is another great example of someone that you've met, someone that's getting trained. Yeah, she's a clone sort of Laura, but they keep bringing her in and then leaving her out, and then bringing her in,
Yeah.
and yeah, you instead of what Marvel did in 2000s, they did like the Young Avengers. Like, here's 7 new characters. Introducing characters to you organically through a story, and what it does, because some of Batman's best moments where you like Batman even more is not the early Batman, but like when Frank Miller came in, and when you got to see when Tim Drake became the Robin.
Right.
Like, you got to see that story, but it was also when Jason Todd became you started to care, but with the interactions between Batman and Robin, not in the fights, but in the befores and afters, and the why he did things. And sometimes you didn't agree with it. Like, I mean, but
you should kill Jason Todd.
Yeah, but I mean, it turned out great because I love the Red Hood. But then you get that dynamic of
right. But I mean, how many years were between?
Oh yeah,
like dead Jason Todd and Red Hood Jason Todd, like a lot. So it's like really, there's like, I don't know. I really like the potential for that kind of like messing with the thing. I mean, that's like when we looked at Secret Wars a couple weeks ago, like that was the thing. I was like, oh, Hickman's doing exactly what Cates is doing. He's just taking something and switching it around and like making it new.
Yeah.
And now everybody is kind of like, oh, this is the way to go. I mean, Marvel did that thing. I don't even remember. Maybe it's Secret Warps. Is that what it was called?
Infinity Warps.
Infinity Warps, yeah. Where it was like, oh, we're gonna take this character and this character, and some of those were awesome. I remember you and I being like, I would read comics about this character.
Weapon Hex, I loved. Whereas like, X-23 mixed with Scarlet Witch or something, or Magic. I think it was maybe Magic.
Yeah. There were some good looking designs too.
Yeah.
That it reminded me of that Amalgam comics, from the 90s where they're Black Claw. Yeah. They're so bad. And then you've got the other things like what if Stan Lee designs Batman or whatever, and all of
which Adam Hughes did the back covers of all of those.
Oh, did he really?
So whenever you see one, look at the back, and Adam Hughes did the back covers.
Oh, that's amazing! I didn't know that.
So there's some actually really good ones. Morello highlighted them one time. Of course, you go for your Catwomans and different ones, and you get him doing his good stuff. But.
Right, yeah. But I mean, I like that. I would much rather it be the Jason Todd in story instead of them trying to like create a brand out of nowhere, or this is the new Thor. Sorry you liked Thor, but this is the new Thor.
Yeah.
And like that, that's it has like there's some excitement to, oh, this is the new thing. But if you're a reader, like it's so much better to fall into the character. Like I really like Gabby. I really like Blind Spot because I read those runs and was excited about those runs. Like I was looking forward to them coming out every month.
Yeah. But like when Blind Spot got introduced, like Daredevil didn't want him as a sidekick, and then he did, and then Blind Spot's struggling, like he hates Daredevil, and like you get all that interaction. Like when they're introducing, like for Black Widow, giving her this potential apprentice or whatever, or so with Lucy, that's the parts of the story, because you get this okay, how to help her out, and then they have her and Yelena in this. Black Widow and Yelena, or Natasha and Yelena, are going through it constantly, and that's the parts I like. Not the fights are great and the action, but you get this family feel. The Spider-Woman, of course, Spider-Woman has a son that happened the series before, but you get all this like, okay, how does she take care of her son who's now hanging from the ceiling and as a spider character or whatever, and then I mean, it's just all this family dynamic. So everything she does, you're like, it makes so much more sense. I mean, that's what made Peter Parker and Mary Jane. All those stories were so much better when he was struggling with how to be a part of a family.
Yeah.
How to have someone you care about. And then that's what's the Black Widow series is good because of that. The Venom, you cared about Venom a little bit more because they gave him a son. That's why when Batman, some of the best Batman stories or when you get it from Alfred's perspective. That's
Right.
I mean, was it whatever happened to the Cape?
Yeah, what happened to the Cape Crusader?
Yeah,
that's Neil Gaiman too.
yeah, that was like a short little what. It's like Batman's gone right before the Snyder run kicks off. You get this 2-issue thing. It's like, oh, this is really good.
Yeah, that's Neil Gaiman and Andy Kubert.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was pretty good stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that we're kind of not missing, but there's so much content in the world, so much stuff like being thrown at us all the time, and some of my favorite things, like the Many Deaths of Layla Starr or whatever, like that was 5 issues. It was super small. Like you got to know the world through the character instead of like I like Scott Schneider, but like I read a little bit of Noctura because we've been talking about it because issue 7 like came out or whatever, and it feels like he's more excited about telling you all the cool stuff he invented for the world building than he is letting you get to know the character.
Yeah,
and like that's where I think new writers like Ram V and stuff, like they're very like focused on character, and the world building is also just as good. But you get there through your Luke Skywalker, through your Harry Potter, through the lens, through your Alfred, instead of boom, here's Secret Wars, you know. So yeah, there's I've been watching like a bunch of like old like early 2000s movies like Igby Goes Down and stuff like that, where it's just this like there's nothing that happens.
Yeah.
You know, it's just these characters that you're focusing on. And then you see everything else happening around the world and the world crumbling while the character is dealing with that. And to me, that's what a good comic has too. Whether it's Matt Murdock or Peter Parker or Bruce or somebody new, you know, there's some good stuff, and it's hard to find a writer who can meld well with an artist to make you care about character. In 22 pages.
And Tinian did the reverse in Batman. He started with issue 89, and he was like, I'm just gonna keep throwing characters out there and no backstory, and then he'd do the origin after the fact. And okay, Punchline's sort of popular, but I mean, people don't get excited as much about her. I mean, Ghostmaker's a cool design, but I mean, I don't know. It's
I mean, there's just so much of it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, shoot, what Tinian gave us, let's see, from issue 89 through 116, so 30 issues. Punchline, Clown Hunter, Ghostmaker, who else? I think there's one more. Miracle Molly.
Maybe a villain or two as well.
Yeah. I mean, the Gardener.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then I think he contributed to the Magistrate or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking 30 in a year, basically.
Yeah.
So you have no characters as to where Zdarsky introduces Alice in issue 26. Briefly. Issue 31, she goes out for a fight with Elektra. Issue 30, now 34, 35, Elektra's like sending her off to school. Like, that's the extent of, but Zdarsky's coming back and he's writing Daredevil again.
I saw that.
So
that was exciting. I didn't think that would happen.
Yeah, I didn't either. I'm so excited. Like, he's doing Devil's Reign and then there's rolling right into, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I don't think it's from a speculator standpoint, I think people now know. So there's no more under-ordered books or whatever for him.
Right, yeah.
Which is great. I'm glad for him that he's writing. But he's a good writer, and he long plays it. So, I mean, he introduces Kingpin's son, but it took 20 issues to introduce him. Like, I love that. I mean, the Lucy, it was a big hit when she first came out, but Spider-Woman, this Rebecca Marchand or whatever character who could be something, issue 1 you meet her, issue 16 you see her in a costume.
Right.
She's in some issues. She's not in all the issues. So, like, I mean, first off, as a writer, to think through that, like, hey, Marvel, am I going to get to do a year's worth of comics?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how any of that works, but I always appreciate that too. Like, it's really nice when something pays off a year down the road. And, you know, they used to do that a lot, like during the 70s. I feel like Batman, especially, there'd be like a little panel here, and you'd be like, "What the heck's happening?" And then like forever later, you're like, "Oh, that's that."
Well, Carnage.
Yeah.
Issue 344, you get you meet Clady. 345, you see the drop of Venom. 360, 361, 20 before you ever see him again. Like, it's not even like, okay, he's no, he's just Leonard, and then we'll go to him. I mean, that it does feel like they don't do, but of course, I mean, for some, it's like, well, I don't have a guarantee I'm going to get to do 20 issues anymore.
Right.
I mean, we don't know if they're going to reboot with a new team.
Yeah, so. I mean, you look at like when Hickman first like started the X-Men thing, he was like, I have a 5-year plan, and everybody was like, they're gonna trust this guy for and did they? No.
Yeah.
Like, he found other stuff to do, or they disagreed on some things. Like, there's a whole like other side of that we don't care about, but it does affect the fact that I was like, man, I was so excited about Powers and House of X, and then like that tripped into this thing that I was like not prepared to go down 12 new titles.
Yeah.
Like, that's impossible, guys. Like, I was hoping this event would be satisfying at the end, and I'm not sure it was. Like,
well, there's a freaking one-shot Secret X-Men comes out next week too.
Mm-hmm.
It's one issue. I don't even think there's a variant.
Oh wow!
It's like the people who were kicked out of the Krakoa. I think is who it is, but I'm just like, okay, I don't know. I haven't been following because you're like you said, it is overwhelming. The weight of the things they created for the X-Men.
Yeah. I don't know. I've been picking up, the regular title here and there, and it's been kind of easy to follow, but I still feel like I'm missing some things because it's just impossible, that level of like interconnectivity or whatever. All right, I'm rambling about character. My bad.
So, guys, thank you so much for watching. Guys, leave comments. Last week we got some great comments. We respond back. We talk to you guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, we'd like to drop your new stuff. Check out the articles. Sunday I drop. You'll see my articles about the characters we talked about, and then on Monday you will get the new comic book day pull list. You'll get to see the different books. I'm sorry I didn't have the full list to show you. I'm still working on all of that. But this is CBSI. This is Joe and Chris just talking comics. We like doing that. Like, subscribe. Tell us what you think in the comments, guys. Catch you next time.
Bye.